March 11, 2019. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Davis? Mr. Lane?
Here.
Dr. Elliott? Here. Mr. Markison?
Here.
Mr. Mormon? Dr. Nemekis? Mrs. Carling sends her regrets, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. I will skip the president's report today and get right to the superintendent's report. Mike?
And the superintendent will hand it off to the principal.
I'm not the principal. So it's been really busy over at the high school. The high school never seems to sleep, especially in the past month. Student council has shifted its focus after planning the winter formal dance, which is a huge success. Like, not to toot our own horn, but we killed it. So we have been focusing on my newly launched inclusion initiative. I have personally met with Ms. Lyons, the head of the Embrace Club, and Mr. Waniger, the head of the Alliance Club. And we are hopeful that our partnership with them will really help change LFHS and make it a more welcoming environment for all of our students. And last week, I hosted my second ever Ask the President session during all the lunches on Thursday, and I received many questions. They all were they all asked, what does the president do? What does student council do? So I'm actually going to work with my communications and scout reach team, and we're going to devise a plan to inform the student body about what student council does and the impact it has on the school, because a lot of people don't really know. That's about it. Thank you.
Good evening. For my report, I wanted to update the school community on some of the survey results from the changes to our exam schedule. I have a whole deck of slides, but I just wanted to point out some key takeaways and some things that we've learned as a result. Overall, well, I'll just go through. 84% of our students liked having exams before winter break. 50% of our faculty thought it was good or like the best thing. 30% answered somewhat. Parents were very positive about the changes and believe 87%. We had almost 300 parents respond. 87.2% believe that we should continue to administer exams before break. Families reported that they felt well informed about the changes, so there were no surprises, and 76% of our students felt that we should begin second semester right after break, as well as 80% of faculty. As you recall, this year we had about a week and a half, 2 weeks after we came back from winter break before the semester ended. Students and staff felt like they had a break. That was a big, there were a lot of comments around, like, even from parents saying for the first time, my student, my child took a book that they wanted to read for enjoyment on vacation rather than a backpack filled with textbooks. So there were a lot of comments around the overall well-being and changes within the household just because there was a break. Other key things to note, students and parents did report that students had a lot of tests and quizzes right before exams. So this is an area that we're going to have to take a harder look at. We polled the teachers to find out the type of exams that they gave. 73% of the exams were traditional exams, meaning a multiple choice test, an essay, those type of things. The other options were connected to project-based exams and more hands-on exams. 69% of our students went to PLT, our personalized learning time, in the morning, and 54% of our students went to the resource centers. So we also wanted to know where students were going for support for exams. So this was interesting. There was a slight discrepancy between the teachers' responses and the students' responses regarding assigning work over break. One of the things that we asked teachers not to do was to assign homework over break. 95.6% of our teachers stated that they did not assign work, while 21% of our students stated that they received work. And so as I began to dig deeper into the comments, I realized that in some cases, teachers gave students work to do and said that the final date to hand it in is right when you come back, even though there was a block of time for them to complete it. So there are situations like that that we'll also have to look at. Some of the things we need to do better is to clarify expectations regarding the start of the second semester for staff next year. In some classes, especially year-long classes that aren't as affected by when the semester ends, they started the second semester, the material, right when they got back from break. Unlike a one-semester class who waited until the deadline to start that. So we just have to be more explicit with that. And something that was asked of the faculty, although they really liked, or though some liked the changes, they seem split on balancing the schedule or leaving it unbalanced moving forward. So just speaking to the calendar that was created for 2021, it is an unbalanced schedule. Some faculty members believe that we need to totally balance out the days, and some are fine with it being unbalanced. When we were considering the calendar for 2021, we did think about our assessment days and other types of days that we automatically lose, and felt like it sort of balances itself out. But these are still areas to consider. Overall, I do want to report that the changes were very positive for the school community, and I will be sharing this information, the whole deck of slides, out to our faculty and staff, as well as I know there are some students very interested in these results. Thanks.
So Shayla, how does the use of the PLTs and the resource centers compare to prior years?
We never took we never gave a survey about the resources. One of the things that I will end up reporting on is we actually did do a deep data dive to look at the differences in exam results and semester grades, exam grades, with this change versus before. So at a different report, I'll come back and share some of that information. It's very interesting.
And maybe you said, how many people replied to the survey? How many students? How many teachers?
So, sorry, I didn't say it. Oh, it's not on here. Sorry, I should have that. So 249 responses from students. I can go through I don't know if you want me to do that now. No, that's all right. Okay. 74 responses from faculty and from parents. $282. Thank you.
I have one other question too, Shayla. You had reported that 51% of the faculty viewed it as largely positive. 30% were in the somewhat category. You talked about some of the things that they might like to have addressed. Did you have any other insight into the 30% who were on the fence? Were there other things from the faculty that they wanted or needed to reach that sort of, yes, it's a good thing?
Well, some of this has to do with curriculums that are prescribed, like our AP curriculums, where they have to get to a certain point and a bunch of material has to be covered within a span of time. Although there was time to prepare for these changes, I think for the first go, a lot of teachers are commenting that they know how to respond, they would respond differently, but that still was a primary comment around AP classes and not assigning work over break for those classes. Made teachers have to make some decisions.
And for part 3, the rest of the superintendent's report is going to have to do with KPIs and the graphics relative to those. And so I want you to keep in mind what I'm going to show you. All of the work with the KPIs is iterative, and so I'm going to show you the beginning step and then a more completed step. What I'd encourage all the board members to do is, if you have thoughts on this, please email those to Ann, because Ann is working with the presentation of these. So we have KPI of extracurricular participation and attendance, and this was an early iteration of it. And working with the graphic designer, arrived at this as being a clearer representation of these two. So this was the first go-around, and this is the second, more dashboard looking, and so this is what will be on the dashboard. These will be able to hover over these. If you want to see additional information, you'll be able to see longitudinal information to the degree that we have it. And also down at the bottom here is the number of students participating in extracurriculars, but also on there is our target. And each of these, we have that. So for a couple others that we have, respect for diversity and our student connectedness. So we again have the targets here on the bottom, a target of 4. 4.0 would be clear on this one, and then we didn't think that these graphics were particularly useful, and went again with a dial on which much better illustrates that we are very close to our target. So each of the KPIs will have some form of a graphic with them. And so, again, we will get better and better, but this is what will make up part of our district dashboard. So with that, take any questions that you have. And again, if you have thoughts, whether it's tonight or later on, contact Ann Whipple relative to that.
Yeah, so for the prior numbers, I mean, we know what percent attendance is, but this 3.83 on a target of 4, if you're going to be quantitative, you need to say what the quantitative question is. So you probably should put not, exactly what was being queried and what a 3 versus a 4
What does this
mean.
4 mean?
Yeah, right. I assume a 4 is strongly agree, and a 3 is agree, and a 2 is disagree, and a 1 is strongly disagree, or whatever. But we don't know what the heck a 3.8 out of 4 is on this measure as written.
Very good. Good. Okay. Other thoughts? Yeah. Right. Right. Yep, exactly. Okay. Reese?
Yeah, I'm disappointed. We had, I know Dr. Elliott, some other board members had some comments on this earlier presentation. I don't see any of my comments incorporated into this. One of the major questions I had, or comments I had, was not to focus so much on the graphic, but to focus on the content. We have a lot more goals than what's presented up here. I don't see attendance as being, it's important. I don't see it as a high priority in a world-class educational institution. We have a lot of other things that we wanted to measure. We've been talking about this for 2 years. It's disappointing that we're at the March meeting and we're still seeing a draft of a graphic. So I don't know what more to say. Then I'm disappointed that we're only this far along.
We will continue to work on it.
Is that it, Mike? Is there any more? Okay, are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? First up is the mid-year strategic plan update. Mike and Shayla.
So on the strategic plan, one of the things that we've been striving to do is to delineate the difference between a building plan and the higher level strategic plan for the district, and I wanted to first have a follow-up to something that we had in a presentation last month relative to student participation. We have extremely high student participation. This is a video that I took recently on one of my building tours. And what I'd like to show you here is that this is one of the budget priorities for us, and this is the freshman boys volleyball. And in speaking with one of the coaches, we have never had as many kids playing freshman boys volleyball, but what's critical about this is it's not just that we have a bunch of boys playing basketball, it's that there are 27 of them, and one of the things that the board funds is both A and B teams. And so these two A and B teams, is every single kid out here, these 27, they will have a chance to participate because of the two different teams, and then that'll funnel into your JV team and then ultimately to your varsity team. Your varsity team is the team that is focused on winning. These students for freshman and sophomore year, freshman JV teams, the emphasis is much more on participation. And it is really great to see this many students participating in this sport, and there's a wide range of shapes and sizes, as is the case with freshmen, and then they grow like crazy. On the other side of the court are the JV kids, and it is astonishing how different the sophomores look than the freshmen. I have to continue with this. Hang on one second. I may have to phone a friend here. There we go. I'll just do that. Okay, so I want to focus on one of the things that we do not discuss a great deal in the strategic plan typically is our partnerships. And there's a number of details in the board packet relative to the number of different opportunities we've had and reach outs within the community. And I won't read off these slides. Much of this is the work of Jim Sullivan, and a huge showing on Open Doors this year with many businesses and a great many students participating in that. A lot of background work. Our students volunteer at rates that are off the charts, just like our parents volunteer throughout the community. Next week is our career fair. That is an all-hands-on-deck affair with all sorts of community partners in there, and some of the partners are listed at the bottom. This is where we place students in internships and job shadowing and so forth. We also have begun the facility master plan, the oversight committee, after feedback from the Board of Ed and selecting membership. Still have one person that we have to nail down. One of our groups that needs to have a representative there. We'll also have a kickoff meeting on that next week. We also launched Thought Exchange. This is under partnerships. This is one of the things for us that it's an area of influence, or area of emphasis, and how do we reach our non-user? So if you don't have a student in the high school, how do we reach you? Thought Exchange is a tool that we can use online, can be forwarded to other people in the community. We've trained our cabinet members. The admin is to follow, and we're going to use this for both inside and outside the organization. We're going to begin to pilot this internally, and then we'll expand beyond that. So with that, I want to conclude the strategic plan update and field any questions that you might have on any of the materials that were sent or other things relative to the plan. Yeah, so we had yep. So this is a summary of the key points from that update. things I thought would be important to emphasize from that.
Any comments, questions? Oh, okay. Thank you. Security report from Lane.
So I will introduce Lane. Lane has been extremely busy with us. He works in the front door of the high school. If you walk in, he's on one of the desks on the right there. You walk in the center doors. Been helpful in a variety of different types of investigations, and really pleased as a great partnership with Principal Holland, and a great asset already, very evidently, in stepping on board with a very different, same position as with Scott Kraniak, but one of the things that I've learned in the past couple weeks is really quite a significantly different set of expectations for him throughout the building and throughout the district.
First off, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight and discuss my passion, school safety and security at Lake Forest High School. Safety and security overall is made up of 4 primary overlapping components. The physical infrastructure, those are the things we see, we feel, we touch, like access control, video cameras, classroom panic buttons, fire alarms, rescue assist system, intrusion detection. Those are all part of the physical infrastructures. Policy and procedures, that's your visitor screening when they arrive on campus before they come in our buildings. Our emergency response plan that covers all of our protocols for how to respond to various hazards we may encounter. Threat assessment and mitigation, we're working on putting a team together now. It's been kind of the missing component in safety and security. And then a clear code of conduct for your students in your buildings. Climate and culture, positive engagement with students, bullying intervention, a confidential reporting tool that we just rolled out at the beginning of the month. That is one of the best practices that was identified by the recent President's Commission on School Safety, was to provide a mechanism for students to be able to report things that they feel affect safety and security within the school, and we have rolled one out. It's available to students not only on their personal devices, it's available in a link on the high school homepage under the student section. It's available as well as an app on their Chromebooks. And then you have consistent rule enforcement, and then community support, which consists of open communication, making sure the community is aware of some of the plans that we have in place and the expectations that we have, collaboration with our stakeholders, and then compliance with our policies and procedures. Some of our new initiatives this year, I mentioned the confidential reporting tool. That's exactly how it looks on the student's device. They open that folder up and it creates a form with a series of questions that they can fill out, and when they submit it, it goes to building administrators who review it and develop a plan to respond. It's already paid dividends with several reports. We have our micro drill resource guide. What this is, one of the things that I've learned in this industry is that we're missing the boat if we're doing school-wide drills once or twice a year. Micro drill resource takes the drills and it puts them in a classroom where teachers can do drills with their students on a regular basis and make them much more aware of how they should respond in an emergency. And then the emergency quick reference guide I put together, I use the standard response protocol that our staff is familiar with, so that the terms and kind of the icons were things that they were already aware of and already practiced. Some of our enhanced procedures for this year include uniform professional development. I hosted a NIMS and ICS class for our joint leadership team in October, and we went through a tabletop exercise on an active shooter scenario, and then as well they were expected to complete the online coursework through FEMA. Many of them have done that, and there's a few that are still working through it. A revised emergency response plan. Law requires us to go through that plan every year. We went through it, made some changes for this year, and those have been printed up and distributed to the key members of the team within the building. And then updated evacuation drills. One of the things that we did there is we added an accountability component to that. So we're requiring that not only do we evacuate our building safely and quickly, but we account for all of our students and staff once we're outside. And we still have work to do in some of these areas, but we are moving forward. Are there any questions on any of this? Yes, ma'am.
The confidential reporting tool is strictly for security threats, is that right?
So I didn't want to compromise the text-to-tip that's been in place. And those are really two separate paths. Text-to-tip is connects students that are struggling or maybe know somebody who is struggling possibly with self-harm issues, and it connects them directly with a social worker. The confidential reporting tool has very clear bullet points that it asks the students, like something is going on that affects things like safety and security. If you've heard a student make a threat, if you see a student being bullied by another student, we've even added in there for a vaping and substance abuse, that if they see somebody doing that in the building, they can use that tool to report that, and then as administrators, we collaborate and respond.
And that's already been rolled out?
Yes, ma'am.
How long has it been
I
going?
rolled it out, I believe, around the beginning of March.
I know you can't, it's confidential, you can't tell us what's, but I hope there's not been tons and tons of reports. I mean,
No,
okay.
actually, I was concerned when I put a program like this together in my last district. We got an uptick of kids that were kind of playing with it and making kind of joking reports, and we haven't had that here, which I think is a tremendous indicator that our students see this as something serious and needs to be treated that way.
But you are confident that all the students and faculty and staff are aware of it?
So the way we rolled it out is we, every week on Friday, they put out kind of a Schoology update, and there was an announcement right on the top of there, 2 Fridays in a row. They received an email to all of the student accounts. I sent an email to the faculty as well, all staff, about it, and we will periodically roll it right back out and just keep pushing it out there until it becomes part of the culture and the students are aware of it and that it's available to them.
Our students have used it very responsibly, and it's actually helped us address some things in the building.
I had a question also. First of all, you passed my initial sort of informal test by not letting me into the building when I came rushing in after hours trying to get in with a bunch of Diet Cokes because we were negotiating with the union at West Campus, and I thought it was at East Campus. But you were very polite as you made me go through the process, so I appreciate it. No, you did good. You did great. And I tried to charm my way past, and you didn't let me, which was awesome. You did the right thing. So one of the things we heard about from the League of Women Voters earlier this year, and you see in any time you subscribe to Ed Week or those updates, is the impact of school safety concerns on the social emotional wellness of the student body. And I'm curious if you, particularly because you're still in that sort of period where you're seeing your last school district versus your first one, how does that land with our students? Is it a significant concern? Is it a crippling concern? Is it a day-to-day conversation?
Sure, that is a great question.
Are you saying that because I complimented you earlier, or?
No, it kind of loops back around. Circle back, I think, is our educational term we use. I'm getting into the educational lingo business. It circles back to the kind of the micro drill, and that one of the benefits of a micro drill is that teachers are having those conversations with students in the classroom on a regular basis. And by doing that, you create this reduced level of anxiety by making it part of the conversation, because I think the worst thing that schools do is ignore it and just hope for the best. And by ignoring it, they're not dealing with the kids' underlying fears. So we try to work through that with the discussions that are to take place in the classroom. The other thing that you do is you involve the social emotional wellness staff in things like your confidential reporting, your threat assessment. They are part of that, because the ultimate goal is to address these issues holistically. And too often we are approaching these things strictly from kind of a law enforcement, almost the military mindset, and we're not dealing with these things holistically, that the ultimate goal is to get these students back to where they feel comfortable at school, and back to where the kids at school feel comfortable having them back in the environment.
Lane, if you could tell us one thing that, since you got here, that you're particularly proud of in your work so far.
One of my goals when I came here was to work within the culture of Lake Forest High School, but to bring security and safety and kind of the mission up to where it needs to be, and that is it needs to be a professional component of the school, and recognized by everybody within the school as a equal partner, if you will, in trying to work through some of the issues we face and our kids face in schools today. I'm working on trying to get professional development for the staff, get our staff up to where they should be, and I guess that encounter that I had with you kind of typifies what I want our staff to be able to do, is to be able to get our message out there, but do it in such a way that our community and our stakeholders respect what we do, but also acknowledge why we do it, and that there's passion behind it. So that, and certainly the response I've gotten from the staff has been almost like a staff that feels like they've been starving for some guidance in this area, and walk like a penguin. I can't tell you, I put that out in as a winter safety tip, and I cannot tell you how many staff members I've had come up to me and say, I had my entire basketball team walking like a penguin when they were walked outside to the parking lot the other day because it was icy. And it's that kind of stuff that makes you realize that they're getting the message, they're applying the information, and that you're recognized as a viable member of the team.
Thank you.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Glad you're here.
The opportunity.
Okay, next we have our committee reports. Elise, has there been an education committee?
No,
last month?
our next meeting is April 2nd, and we're going to hear about reimagining freshman year, so I'm looking forward to that.
Wow, wish I could go back in time, reimagine my freshman year. Finance and Ops, David, has there been a
we did
meeting?
not meet.
No meeting? Policy, Ted, has there been a meeting
Not
this last month?
since our last meeting, but we will be second reading.
Second reading of some policies. Okay, liaison reports, Diana's not here to talk about foundation and other things. Ed Red, Sally, anything happening?
3 short items. As we're all well aware, on February 14th, the Illinois Senate and House and Governor Pritzker signed a bill that will raise minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2025 as an employer in the state. That's an important piece of information for us to know. The second thing is that the House has a bill that is on a fast track to reverse the decision that was made last year by the Illinois legislature to cap end of career salary increases from 6% down to 3%. That was last year's legislation. This year's legislation would reverse that and take us back from 3% to 6%. It is, in my opinion, going to pass the House, and then we'll be on to the Senate. So I think we will have more information about that shortly. And finally, on February 26th, the new Illinois State Board of Education was sworn in. one member was invited back, and everyone else is new. And I will ask Mrs. Whipple to put a link in the board minutes so that you can take a look at who has been appointed. They are all deep and heavy in educational theory, practice, and history. The only other thing I was going to say is that it's just too early in the legislative session to report on any other legislation in a meaningful way. But what I have found interesting in looking at the bills as they're coming through is that you start to see trends. And the trends that I wanted to mention to you, whether or not any of these pass, are certainly things that are of interest to constituents right now and are certainly things that are of interest to the legislature. One of them relates to the report we just heard. There are always a fair number of very specific standards relating to improving school security. Sometimes EdRed feels that they are misplaced or not necessarily in the best interest of our students. But if I had to pick the number one trend that you see, it is all around school security. The other areas that you see a lot of are reforms in para, which is the professional assessment of our teachers. Lots of nitpicky changes to the way that para will be administered. This is my bow to Mr. Simic. Lots of unfunded mandates for coursework. Again, civics, economics, Illinois history, always. Lots of student discipline reforms so that students who are at risk are not falling between the cracks perhaps as easily. And then the last one, which was most interesting to me, is that there are 2 pending bills in the House, which may or may not pass, that would require any school construction projects to be approved by referendum. There would be no school construction of any type without a referendum first. I have no idea if it'll pass or not, but it was an interesting from a trend standpoint. That's it. Thanks. Any school construction project. It's not new construction.
Even if they're not asking for money?
Because it's an expenditure of money. It's
Oh.
and the
But
either
if they're not
or.
asking for a tax?
The either or is whether it should be returned to the taxpayers. So the taxpayers need to have, according to the bill, the right to vote on whether they'd rather have the funds returned to them or spent on the construction. Yeah, interesting.
Okay, NSSCD, Ted? Is there-
We have not met since our last meeting. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, March 13th. But 2 things that have been completed since we did meet last. All 18 member districts have met with NSSCD and to kind of forecast planned usage of NSSCD services for the 1920 calendar year. And with that, it really helps NSSCD forecast their budgetary and staffing needs a little bit better. Secondly, work in progress is starting with the 1920 year. It used to be NSSCD would just do a single source idea fund request for all 18 districts. But although NSSCD was doing a good job, apparently some other districts weren't doing such a good job. So now each individual district has to do it. So now it makes more work for Jen Hermes and her staff that they'll have to do the report. And it's going to be much worse for the state of Illinois, which was already bogged down. Now instead of getting 40 reports, they're going to have one from every district in the state. So that's going to be another work in progress. More to report after next Wednesday.
Thanks. On to the action items part of the agenda. First up is approval of our 3-year auditor contract. We went out for bid. I'll let Jen talk a little bit more about this. Solicited bids from a bunch of firms. Jen, why don't you take it away and summarize what you're going to
I'll
ask
give you
for.
a summary. This was a renewal process. It ended up to be that way, but we did actually go out and solicit proposals from interested auditing firms that work primarily or have experience in the school district auditing arena. We received 6 proposals from that. We did reduce those to 3, and we did formal interviews with each of those finalists. I will say all of them are very qualified. All of them would have produced a really solid, high-quality audit for us. We actually are recommending a renewal with our existing auditing firm, Miller Cooper. This is at a nice rate. We got a nice renewal rate, let's say that. And also, we've had a good partnership and relationship with them. So I'm expecting that to continue over the next few years. This is a 3-year renewal with the ability to extend for 2 additional 1 years beyond that.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion, and then we could ask any questions. May I have a motion to approve the auditor contract?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the auditor contract.
Second?
Second?
Any questions, comments? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next up is approval of our Quest Food Management contract for $70,885. May I have a motion to approve the food management contract?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the Quest Food Management 2019-2020 contract in the amount of $70,885.
Second.
Second. We happy with their service? This was, I saw in the packet, this is about a 2% increase over.
It is. This is a CPI increase. We're extremely happy with them. If you recall, the employees are still our employees, the servers and the cooks and the line cooks. What Quest brings to us is kind of that expertise, in addition to the ability to piggyback on their much larger purchasing contracts. Obviously, with all of their contracts, they get better food pricing than we get. So we've been able to take advantage of that as well. So it's been very successful with the kind of the renovation of our cafeteria and also the rolling out of the grind. So our coffee and snack bar has been very successful.
Any other questions for Jen? Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next is approval of the Lake Forest High School and Lake Forest High School Hockey Association Club Agreement with a revision. Well, let's first, may I have a motion to approve the Lake Forest High School Hockey Association Agreement?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the Lake Forest High School District 115 and Lake Forest High School Hockey Association Club Agreement revision.
Second?
Second.
Okay, could someone explain, I know you summarized the changes, could someone explain what the changes are from the prior contract?
The changes include a clear expectation for the Hockey Association to have their own code of conduct and to communicate that with all of the students involved. In order for the association to use our name and our logo, it requires 100% participation from our students. So students from external districts can't be a part and then participate under the Scout name or logo. Additionally, students participating will no longer receive a PE waiver.
Starting with the juniors, right? Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Shayla, can I just clarify one piece? Historically, hockey goalie is the only position if, to make a long story short, if students from Lake Forest High School do not try out as a hockey goalie, you have to try out to be able to be placed in another school district, but if we don't have any students, that they try to place students from other schools as a hockey goalie only. I'm assuming that would be allowed to continue.
That wasn't discussed by the Hockey Association.
Okay, so that may be, I mean, I only bring it up, it happens rarely, but I know, like when Jack was in JV, we had actually a hockey goalie from Stevenson because we only had one goalie and they want to carry two. There were no other students that tried out from Lake Forest. And so students who try out and are cut from their team are then usually placed through the organization. Yeah, only because it's a specialized piece, but I'm assuming we can maybe revisit that at a later point.
Probably. It wasn't an issue. Yeah, we could do an addendum if we can't find a goalie.
What?
Do we have a junior goalie?
No, well, we have plenty of goalies right now, but and it's only goalie, no other position is allowed, and you have to try out and be cut from the school that you're at in order to be put in the pool to be placed somewhere else. You're not allowed just to, you're not allowed to elect not to try out and then hope to get placed at a better school or anything. So you do
Okay.
have a rule within AHI that controls the process. It's not, you can't draft and stuff like that, so. Kids continue to participate. Exactly, and nor can you choose a school to go to that you think they got a better program. You're kind of in or out.
Okay. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next up is approval of our Olson Transportation 2019-2020. This is our bus contract. May I have a motion first, and then we'll talk about it?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the Olson Transportation 2019-2020 contract.
Second?
Second.
So this, how much of an increase? Jen, can you just give us a little bit of history? I know we've talked about transportation now for the last couple of years, but
Yeah, this continues to be an extremely tight market, so the ability for them to attract and retain qualified bus drivers continues to be an issue. What you're seeing is an increase in hourly rates, an increase in benefits in order to try to do so. We're looking at a 5% increase when we've looked at kind of the comparators for people who have renewed with their providers. We're right in the kind of the average range, that we have seen a few higher, not many lower. We've also taken a look at some of the districts that have gone to bid and done an analysis of that, and the average for that is in the double digits. So this is generally not the market that you'd want to go to bid, but kind of negotiate with your current provider the best you can. So 5%, although it's higher than CPI and higher than we see in our other contracts, we think is warranted in this case.
so I know it's us, 67, and then Lake Bluff and one other district. Are they still all in?
Yes,
Using
109,
Olson?
Deerfield 109 is the fourth.
109 is the fourth. They're still in. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next up is approval of the $729,000 custodial contract. So first I'll ask for a motion and then a second, and then we could have some discussion. May I have a motion to approve the custodial contract bid?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the custodial contract bid in the amount of $729,379.
Second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? Jen, do you want to explain the reason for the increase?
Sure. So we made some changes in our actual service during the economic downturn 2009, 2010. One of the things that we did was reduce the number of hours per day as a cost-saving measure. Similar to the transportation industry, when you see low unemployment rates, this is an area where you have a hard time attracting and retaining. We've seen an incredible amount of turnover with this particular staff. One of the things after having conversations with the company is, okay, how can we prevent that? How can we keep some of our employees, or they're not direct our employees, but some of our contracted employees longer? Because we do see a change in service when they turn over so frequently. And one of them is that we're competing with other places that are offering 8 hours a day instead of 7 hours a day. So one of the things we did was also increase the base pay by a quarter. And we've increased the hours back up to the 8 hours that we were previously. So that was a fundamental change in the contract, but what we're hoping to gain is having periods of time where we are not fully staffed. I think we try to take great pride in our buildings. It's an older building, especially at East, but I think we have a certain expectation for cleanliness and standards related to that. So we're hopeful this will do it. It is a one-year contract, so we have the opportunity to come back next year if we want to come at it differently, or we do have the option at the end of next year to renew it for additional terms if we see fit. We did have 6 respondents to this RFP as well. One was disqualified because they actually didn't meet our spec. And RJB, who is the recommended provider here, was the lowest of the other 5.
67 also use them?
They have in the past. That's not their current provider, and that was not. They also went out to bid at the same time, but a different provider was low. It's actually their existing provider. So each district still has a different provider, but they were low for them.
They were the low,
These were not low for 67.
so 67 doesn't use
They
it?
do not.
Okay.
I believe, and Brittany can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe 65 might be with RJB as well. Nope. They're the same as 67. So of the 3, 2 are with a different provider.
And this is almost a 10%, right? It was 9.7%.
Correct.
So the way I understand, we didn't ask for that 8th hour. That was them saying, this is, the way we need to keep people is we need to give all our current custodians an 8th hour.
We had a conversation with them the same way that we did back in 2009, like, all right, should we reduce and, skip classrooms on the 5th day? Do we go to a 4-day rotation? And what they came back with at the time is actually the better way would be to reduce the hours. We'll try to do a rotational schedule. And that did help us at that time. So kind of the same thing in reverse. Okay, how can we stop the amount of turnover that we have so we can have consistent staff in our building that know our buildings? And one of them was, well, you're competing with people who are offering 40 hours a week. So people will choose to go other places.
Do you,
Like, we couldn't have fewer custodians working 40 hours a week. We have the same number of custodians just working an extra hour, because they only got a 2% raise.
Right, we added
The increase
extra
in the hourly
hours
rate
to the contract.
that we didn't ask for.
We
This-
did ask for.
Well, we asked for it not because our building was dirty, but because that was a way that we jointly agreed that we need to keep
try to-
keep our guys
Correct.
and gals on staff.
do you have any idea what the hourly rate is for these?
Brittany would
Employees?
remember it. I want to say it's $12, and we changed it to $12.25. Is
The
a start.
they gave them a 2% raise, but yet we're getting we're getting passed on a 10% increase.
We set the starting rate by contract, because if we were to switch to a new provider, all of the existing employees then have the option to go to the new provider. We set base limits for insurance as well. So the salaries and benefits would be equal among companies.
What was the problem with the low bid? What specs didn't they meet? Do you know?
They actually didn't meet the staffing specs. So everybody was required to at least offer employment to the existing staff, and they were coming in with reductions. But you're not apples to apples on that. They certainly could have bid that as an alternate and had that considered, but they didn't. They bid that as their base, which meant they didn't meet spec.
No one else? Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
No.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next up is approval of our second reading of our policy changes. May I have a motion to approve second reading of press, issue 99?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the second reading of Press Issue 99.
May I have a second?
Second.
Great, and I know we cleaned up we had a question last month about consumer ed. Cleaned that up. Eileen did a good job of researching that. So our policy is good, meets the graduation requirements. Any comments? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Mormon? Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next up is approval of our Human Resources Report. May I have a motion to approve the Human Resources Report as presented?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
Second?
Second.
Fair amount of stuff on there. Any comments, questions, thoughts? Okay, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Markison?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next is the consent agenda. I'll remind everybody, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any individual board member. So may I have a motion to approve consent agenda items, including approval of disbursements, payrolls, and financial statements for January 2019, minutes of a regular meeting and workshop from February 11th, 2019, minutes of an executive session from February 11th, 2019, minutes of a special board meeting from February 21st, 2019, minutes of an executive session from February 21st, 2019, disposal of audio recordings from March 13th, 2017. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Lake Forest Community High School District 115 Board of Education approve the consent agenda items as presented.
A second?
Second.
Any comments? May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Mormon?
Aye.
Dr. Elliott?
Aye.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Dr. Nemekis?
Aye.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Mr. Markuson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We had 5 FOIA requests. 4 are complete. The Lake Forest leader made a FOIA request. That status is complete. Patch made a FOIA request. That is complete. The Daily Herald and Emmerich Services made FOIA requests. Those are complete. And a FOIA request from Smart Procure is pending. A few announcements. March 20th is the Spring Choral Concert at 7:30. March 22nd, Spring break begins. School reopens on April Fool's Day, April 1st. Friday, April 5th is the Alumni Wall of Fame induction. Secret, no one knows who's inducted yet. No, okay. And then Monday, April 8th is the last meeting of this old board. Not old in age, but current board. Right here, 7 p.m. in the same room. So may I have a motion to adjourn the Lake Forest Community High School Board meeting? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.